So you wanted to particularly focus on African creators. Why?
I think that, there's so many different answers I can give you. I think, first of all, I think globally, there's no sort of disputing that people of the motherland, all of us, Africans and the diaspora, all of us together are the most creative people that have ever walked this earth. This is indisputable to me. And I think that, there's a certain way that I grew up around storytellers, and Somalis are poets and, lyricists and extremely just sort of artistically always sort of ahead. And that isn't the Africa that I heard about growing up in this country. So there was always this sort of chasm between what I grew up understanding being African meant, and when I go outside my door, growing up here, what Africa meant sort of culturally growing up. The perception. Mm-hmm. The perception was, we grew up in the 80s and 90s with the famine commercials. And I think culturally that is what, to many people, Africa was, right? Yes. It was hunger. It was war. Mm-hmm. It was poverty, what we now call poverty porn, right? And so I've always felt, there's something really unjust about that, obviously. And I'm obviously a political analyst, so I know why. Right. That's the case. And so I think by that point, I just was like, I think it's her time, her being Africa. I think it's her time. And I want to play a role, and let's see what that looks like. Right. So that's why.
Amazing. So, boy, I'm not ready to jump into this next question, though. We're in such a, but I will. So Statement Films recently secured a significant investment from Magic Johnson, Samuel L. Jackson, and his wife, LaTanya Jackson. How does it feel to have your vision actualized by such major power players in entertainment?
I'm grateful to God. I believe that, I'm a believer. I think I lead with gratitude on this question. I think to be so fortunate, and I should say, even just backing up before sort of involvement and Statement, Auntie LaTanya and Uncle Sam are my family. So they've known me for decades. And, their daughter Zoe is my best friend, and, so they are my family. And yes. Mr. Johnson, I met through the Jacksons, and he is, dear, dear, dear to me. I've known them for years. I think I've always felt so supported by this group of people. Auntie and Uncle met me when I was very young. And, every conversation was a welcome conversation. My curiosity about the industry was very welcome. Right. I said in my personal post with the day that the announcement was made about the investment a couple of months ago that, to be under the shade of the Jackson tree for the last couple of decades has been one of the greatest gifts of my life. They're very special to me. Mr. Johnson's also very special to me. I think, so I will start there and say that it's a personal relationship. Right. Now, in terms of how they got involved in Statement, that's a funny one. So we were actually on vacation. It was a big group of us. I think this is end of 2019. We were in the Caribbean for the sort of New Year's, post-Christmas, just a week. And I just remember, everyone kind of knew, my friends at least knew, like the kids, the younger people, what I was up to and sort of what I was looking into doing. And, Areej is going to kind of pivot to Africa and do this stuff. And so we were on vacation. I just remember Mr. Johnson, towering, and just as a person, very commanding presence. And it's like, what are you looking to do right now? Very pointed. What is it that you want to do? And I was like, well, I'm starting this company, I think. I think I'm going to do it. And I think I was 35 at the time. And then I think over the course of the 7 days together, the group, it was a few different families on the trip, asking all of us, that were on the trip, what do you want to do? And so over the course of 7 days, like more and more sort of shared about my vision and what I see. And also what I can't see yet, right? I was very open about just sort of the fear of really going for it. The amount of support that I was shown, I still am wrapping my head around it years later, because I don't know, if it weren't for that trip, I don't know sort of where life, how things, it was definitely, I believe I look back on it as one of the most important sort of periods of my life, those 7 days. I think it was something very beautiful about just a generous, kind, visionary group of people who have done everything there is to do in this life already, who are the hardest working people I know, looking at me and saying, we care.
Yeah.
We want to know. Here are a couple of things to think about and keep us posted.
Right.
So that's really how it started.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So you're very passionate, obviously, about supporting women of color while also championing them with your Statement Films production company. Tell me why it's so important for you to create a company that specifically sources and develops films and content by African women.
There is no the amount of talent on the continent right now, and women are leading the charge, but men too, is explosive. Largely untapped, but changing, even just by the standard of like the last Cannes that we just saw a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
African filmmakers are rewriting sort of the African narrative as we live and breathe right now. This generation of auteurs is, I think, the greatest generation of African auteurs yet. We are luckily involved with some of these amazing, amazing filmmakers at Statement, sort of putting together a pipeline and an ecosystem of this talent has been one of the greatest joys of my life. Getting to know these women, getting to know the stories they want to tell, and then being able to support that however that we can.
Yes.
And hopefully and definitely seeing some of these projects through to the screen. I think African storytelling country to country is very unique. I don't think a lot of people have exposure to the amazing sort of particular creativity that comes from these places, to the stories that no one's heard from these places, just simply because there hasn't been an avenue, there hasn't been a path. That's something that I think a lot of us in this country understand. And women, why not?
Right.
Why not?
So you started Statement Films, as you just mentioned, in January of 2020. How challenging was it to create this unique company right before the pandemic that impacted everyone globally? And how did that affect your process?
It's funny.
Where were you?
I know.
How did you connect? You're developing content with African women. How?
It's interesting. So I quarantined in Egypt.
Okay.
I was in Cairo. COVID was COVID, and we're still trying to understand all of it. We're still not all the way we don't have enough perspective yet. We're all, I think, trying to process. I think it's a funny answer, Umindi, because I don't know. It's a bit unique. I think I had access to some great talent because of COVID, to be honest.
How so?
When I was putting together the company, obviously getting a business plan together and all of these really at the time intimidating sort of firsts that are the rite of passage when it comes to being an entrepreneur. People were at home. So you had all these amazing grads from Harvard Business School, Stanford, the internship fell through, going home to quarantine, kind of have some time for the next 4 months. I don't know that would have been the case even the next year.
Right.
There was something interesting happening in terms of availability of people. I think people needed something to be excited about. I think
to look forward to.
Something to look forward to. I think inspiration is inspiration, and we're all constantly looking for it. It's a lifeline. So I had access to some incredible people that came in, were consulting, and helped me put together the blueprint of the vision, the 1.0.
Right.
So it wasn't easy, but for some reason, I felt that in certain ways, the skies were really open in 2020. Yeah.
Got it. So what advice would you give to women of color looking to pursue a career in the film industry?
Surround yourself with people who understand the creative process, who are not afraid of those who make decisions that are maybe a little different. Surround yourself with people that are excited by your ideas, who want to hear about them, whose ideas you want to hear. Keep negativity very, very far away from you, including the people who bring that to you.
Right.
It's not the time to be around them when you're creating. It's a very vulnerable place to be. It's a very beautiful place to be. It's a spiritual place to be. Treat it that way.
Got it.